Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Catacombs video, we're going to be taking a look at Dragon Age Inquisition on the PlayStation 4 versus the Xbox One, with a focus, of course, on the frame rate. So, just so we're all up to date, the PS4 version of the game does run at a native frame buffer of 1920 by 1080, whereas Microsoft's platform runs at 1600 by 900. Obviously, this means that the PS4 version does run at a higher pixel density, but because the higher resolution in the PS4's frame buffer, it does mean that the PS4's GPU is doing more work. Now, this also translates to the fact that the PS4 version does dip in frame rate compared to the Xbox One. The X1 not seem to dip below 30 FPS. It's pretty much rock solid. Maybe one dip to 29, very rarely. But the PS4 version does dip to the high 20s, particularly in more open environments if there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, this isn't just because of pixel density, it's also processing other things. Now, some of those, and this is not an exhaustive list, this will be completely covered on the graphical comparison, and they would be things such as higher amounts of tessellation, better quality shadows. Most of this is, to be totally honest, down to the higher internal resolution, but it will be slightly noticeable. There is also a couple of other bits and bobs that you might spot as well, such as the PS4 version does support some self-shadowing. It's not massive, it's not a huge improvement over the Xbox One, but it is there. And there is also a few level of detail issues on the Xbox One compared to the PS4. But with that said, in a very strict sense, the Xbox One version does have a slight superiority in terms of performance. Over the next few days, we'll be putting a link into the video description as well as an annotation, so by the time you check this out, it might already be there, but we've finished our complete thoughts and opinions. Obviously, this video is a little bit late going up simply because most of the RJT team have been sick, plus as well, we've been making some changes with our graphical comparisons. However, if you do want the full comparison, you should check it out. We'll be doing it versus the PC as well, PS4 versus the PC. But I will be giving my initial opinions on this, since obviously many people are going to be probably picking this up for Christmas for someone, or maybe even yourself. My opinions on this in terms of the playability is the PS4 version, to be honest, plays pretty much fine. You will notice occasionally the PS4 version does have a little bit of latency associated with the controls, obviously because of the lower frame rate, but it's not anything particularly bad. I don't find it really impacts the experience that much. Obviously, if you want the best frame rate anyway, the PC version is the way to go. But in terms of solid frame rate, the Xbox One version is definitely a step above the PS4. So really, here's what I would suggest. If you are someone who's really a stickler for the frame rate, and if you feel that, you know, the frame rate dipping to the high 20s is going to bother you, get the Xbox One version. It's more solid, and the graphical differences, yes, they are noticeable on a larger screen, but if you're playing on a smaller screen in particular, it won't be too much of a big deal, and you're going to have slightly better performance. The reverse is also true. If you'd much rather the game look a little bit prettier, have slightly less performance, not massive amounts, it's only going to be during, as I said, the more strenuous areas. You can see that, for example, when we head to the later part of this comparison and you start getting a more closed environment and less weather effects and less spell effects and so on, then it's not going to be such a big deal. We've deliberately picked a mage to really strain things more, because obviously you've got more effects on screen. As I said, in those cases, the PS4 is the way to go if a few frames per second dropped isn't going to bother you. Regarding the loading times and everything else in the game, the two versions are pretty much interchangeable within 1 to 2 seconds, obviously depending on what levels are loading. And to be honest with you, the initial load for the game is pretty painful across both platforms, but if you happen to die, or you reload a save for the same area, it's not too bad at all. You're speaking just a few seconds. I would like to clarify, however, with all of what I've just said, the Frostbite 3 engine, which of course is what Bioware have used for Dragon Age, does a fantastic job across both machines, and both versions of the game do look truly beautiful. there are a few who can say that the game does not look very visually impressive, and it's a stark contrast compared to the previous generation versions of Dragon Age Inquisition. And really, if you've seen those in action compared to the next generation, you can really tell that really Frostbite doesn't really have a place in the previous generation. This is truly a next-gen game, and really the differences between them is not really that much of a big deal. So I would say really the PS4 version gives my particular nod. I don't find the frame rate drop that big of a deal. I'd rather deal with 1 to 2 frames per second drop and deal with, you know, and enjoy the slightly nicer graphics. But there's nothing wrong with the Xbox One version. There are probably users who are going to feel completely opposite and would rather have, you know, a slightly more solid frame rate experience and lose out on a couple of pixels. So really, the choice, as always, is completely and utterly your own, but either way, thumbs up for Bioware for doing an absolutely fantastic job on the game and very, very few bugs that we've spotted so far. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Forgive the fact it's been a little bit slow going up, to say the least, but we're going to be firing on all cylinders over the next few weeks, so hopefully you've enjoyed the video. So take care, bye for now.